In the name of Allah, the All-Merciful, the Most Merciful. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad. So we are starting the videos on ayah and belief. So here it's the questioning what is true and what is not, following the coverage of pleasure and pain and capacities. So what's the challenge here? If you look across the world, the families, nations, continents, you will notice that people have the same pleasure and pain. It's all those that we covered. So basically we have the same, all that we can feel is the same. Similarly, when you look at people's capacities, at least the body capacities, we all have the same. So basically, excluding disability, we all have 2 hands, 2 feet, and roughly same capacity to think, to memorize, to move, and so on. Yet, despite those similarities, we can see a very large diversity of behavior across the world. Different pleasure and pain are targeted. Some looking for wealth, others to develop, maintain their community, other skills, and so on. And even for the same pleasure and pain, different capacities are used, different jobs, different sports and hobbies, and so on, to reach those PP. So basically, up to now, despite covering all that we can feel, all that we can do, we are still missing a very important aspect of life. So if we ask people why they do what they do, you will see that the way they connect things, the way they value pleasure and pain capacities and connect them is very different. Some of these differences we won't deny it now. Some of them are apparently connected to the availability of natural resources, but even that is not always true, since some very close neighbors at the same latitude, typically with the same weather, have the same resources, yet they have a very different lifestyles, sometimes even opposed to each other and at war across many centuries. I'm sure you can think of examples. So basically, people knows, and I put this knows between brackets because we don't know exactly what it means, knows the pleasure and pain and capacities differently. So we can't rely on them to right now figure out what's the direct link between pleasure and pain and capacities, so that we can enjoy our pleasures and avoid our pains. So how do we connect this pleasure and pain and capacities? That's the big question. And are there any better ways to connect them? If yes, how do we know the right way to do things? So all these questions are basically one and the same question: what is knowledge, and how can we define it, and how can we make sure what is the definition of best, and how can we make sure we get this best version of that knowledge? So this is the challenge of this. This is the challenge of this section, ayah and belief. So we start by framing the problem, basically where we will define a strong truth. From that definition, we try to reach it. We try to design a process to reach that strong truth. So we detail each and every step of that process, and then we discuss the reality, what happens on the ground. From that, we'll conclude that there are some vulnerability in the way things are done. There are vulnerabilities in assessing the strong truth. So we will define a weaker version of the truth, introduce that term of ayah. And since all this is a matter of knowledge as well, the whole section, the whole channel as well, we will discuss why would I do things this way. So we'll come back. We use the method here to come back on the method on what I defined in the whole thing. So first question is, where do we start? Since all opinions differs, so many different stories, so many different knowledge. The first thing we can start with is some fundamental assumptions. There are 2 of them. The pleasures and pain exist. Basically, if you do not believe it, try to put your hand in a fire or on a hot surface. You will see that something happens, that event will happen as if like you wanted to remove that hand from the fire, like immediately, very fast, and something happens. We're not sure yet exactly what happens, but that thing that happens, we call it existence, and it's pleasure and pain. So it applies to pleasure, to typically here injury, but we extend this to all the pleasures and pain, as we can come up easily with examples for each. And the same way, the capacities exist. For example, if I tell you to move your hand in a trajectory that forms the shape 7p, for 7 paired, you wouldn't have done this action if I didn't tell you. So at this very moment you did it, something happened that makes you feel like you draw that 7p, and so you used your capacity, something that we call capacity, to do that action. Same way, you can think about an elephant. You wouldn't have thought about this elephant. You wouldn't have had that picture of elephant if I didn't tell you at this very moment. So for now, we just assume that they exist so that we can define things, and then we come back on that assumption. Why would I define them this way? Why would I start with them at first place and not with any other form of knowledge? So definitions. So we call occur or happen. We say that an event occurred or happened if the pleasure and pain or the capacities come to exist. And we can also define a real event. So a real event is an event that includes at least one pleasure or pain, or one capacity existence, so that occurred. And we'll see why there are other events that are not real, and we'll define them later. Also, in following sections after the area, we'll cover base behaviors and the nature. Both of them will also be included in that real event, but since we haven't covered them, I left them out. Now that we know the pleasure and pain exist, we need to know something else. So, we want to know what do people want. What's our goal here? What could be a strong basis for what are we looking for? If you ask people what are they doing and why they are doing it, like if you come at a random time of the day, like really random, you throw a dice to know which hour you go and see a person, you will see them whether sleeping. So here basically they are avoiding the fatigue, the pain that we define as fatigue, or they are eating or drinking, and here so they avoid the hunger and thirst. And for those that have a bit more money, they enjoy the pleasure of food. Some of them, there's a high chance you meet the person while he's working, and he may be working for different reasons to survive, typically avoid hunger and thirst, or many other things according to the place you live. He can also just simply work to get more wealth, so here looking for pleasure of increasing the intermediary of wealth. Improve crafts, he's like working on his skills and try to get better, so here skills and achievement. He may be simply commuting to work, so here that action is just a contribution action to a greater goal, that is work, which is for wealth or whatever reason you have here. So basically it's targeting the same pleasure pain as the work. Or he may be simply interacting with his family, so here is all these community pleasure and pain that he's trying to get or avoid, and so on. We can cover all the other activities, the hobbies and so on, and there's always one clear pattern that stands out here. We are always trying to either get a pleasure or avoid a pain. So that's going to be a third temporal fundamental assumption. Humans are only looking to get pleasures and to prevent pain. Or we can put that in one term, the term we defined earlier, value, the sum of pleasure minus the sum of pain. So humans want to deliver value. That's the ultimate goal that we will assume. And one last element before we define our truth is we need to come back on this capacity of communication that we described in previous videos. So here is the ability to encode and decode messages between living agents, and a message itself is an event representation by an agent. When you encode, you go from the event to the representation. When you and decode a message from a representation to the event. So here, basically, when we communicate, we share this event called message that is it's not happening in reality. It's not a PP that is felt. It's not a capacity that is executed. It's just a meaning that is like a shared and that can only be shared between agents. Basically, it's a virtual construction. It's not related to time. Here, the definition of this message is not a real event. It's not related to time or reasoning. It's just there. It exists. For example, if you see a red light on the street, the red light, there is nothing in the system that tells you at red light you need to stop. There's nothing you can look at. There's just a circuit with a light that emit wavelength, red wavelength, and there's nothing that tells you like it's not written anyway that it's at red light you stop. Basically, it's this message of stopping at this light is only an agreement between humans, and it's not. It existed before that red light, after, before, during, after. So it's really not exact. It's not related to the time, to the time that we experience. Why would I? So why would I cover this? The thing is, when we have a goal and we have actions that we can make to reach that goal, when we need to make a decision, somehow we need to kind of list out the events in our head. How do we connect things? What do we do first? What do we do second? In order to ultimately get that goal. Basically, we are making use of words or sometimes just images. When you want something and you can't name it, we use this list of words and images to get to connect to our goal. In other words, to figure things out, we use communication messages. And here we will assume this, even though we can't verify it. We just assume it because it happens, or it happens with most of the actions we do. So we actively consider events within ourselves the same way we communicate with other agents. So it's a big assumption. We can't know it because we don't know exactly what happens for us, what happens inside us when we make decisions. There's a lot of elements that we'll cover a lot of them actually in base behaviors, but there's a lot of things that happen, and it's not exactly us that do things. All these typically the neural networks in the brain, they operate on their own. We don't send this signal. We don't tell the brain to send this signal at this moment to this location. It just happens on its own. So we can't, because of this, we can't verify that everything we do is reducible to messages. But if you just look at, for example, all these actions, or sleep, you can define the whole thing, you can plan the whole thing by using words. I can go to a bed at this time and wake up at this time and stand in this position, and by doing all this you put words, communication messages that account for all the life you plan to execute. That's why I say that all that we do are messages. All that we do, we actively, it's not things that happens by accident. we consider them by way of communication messages. Now that and those messages are not real event. Now that we know this and we have this assumption, we can define two like major definition. Statement is a communication message, not a real event, indicating that a target event occurred or is going to occur. So here we define the term of target event, and that target event is to occur or not, is to occur. And the statement may be decodable in any explicit format, but it can also be implicitly and consciously considered in the mind. So basically here a statement is everything that goes through your mind, everything that you say, everything that goes through your mind is a form of statement. It says something occurred or is going to occur depending on the tense. And a belief is basically is when an agent is considering the target event of a statement as truly occurring simply. So here one belief applies to one statement. Very important. These two definitions are very important. We'll use them a lot. So basically, just the position of an agent with respect to one message, a non-real event that talk about a target event, and that target event. We do it now is there's two types of statement. A target event can be a real event itself, or a message, or a communication message. And here the idea is that since pleasure and pain and capacities are real event, to feel something, you have to be in the real event. It's not in the messages that you will get the pleasure. So there is two types of statement. There are statements that includes a real event, and those are way more important than those that are only messages, which is basically any symbolic event that can be shared between two persons, two agents. So here I just give you a representation, a simple graph. The message space and the real event space are first, they are not together, as a message is really a virtual thing, as mentioned. So for example, here in a virtual messages, you can have a news article. The news article is the words shared by the journalist, but it is not necessarily the real events that occur on the ground. It can be a news article about an earthquake, and the earthquake, it's a real event. It's really the movement of the ground that injure or kill people. So here there is real pleasure and pain involved. But still, in the message there is something special that happens. There is one set of messages, group of messages that are, as we'll see later, very unique. It's called mathematics. It's a set of statements that happens to be very useful to another ensemble called physics. So basically, physics is all that is related to nature, statement on nature. And this physics theory happens to be very good at predicting the experimental, and the experimental is a real event, that is to say something you can feel. So this link mathematics to physics theory to experimental is makes still the message still important. This part of the messages is very, very important, as we see later. And yes, in the following section I can give you example just for information, I would say. This verse of the Quran that says, "Then by the Lord of heaven and earth, all this is certainly as true as the fact that you can speak." So this freedom of all the things you may say with the messages has a special property, and we'll define later this God's justice, at least try to interpret it in detail, and it's sub-element of mathematics, as we see later. So two things just to remember of this slide is statements of real events are way more important than messages, and the messages relating to mathematics and the way we'll see that we'll cover that section logic later, the way things are, the order there is in the space of messages is also very important. Before defining the truth, just to give an example of belief and how things can go very, very fast in the space of belief. Let's say you are attending a definitely crazy experiment. You are in a room with a person in front of you, and that person is invited to push a button, and you see him, you are close to him, you can even touch him. You see him push that button, and once he pushed that button, there's this voice that tells him, you have pushed the button, here's your sentence. And then somebody masked comes in and firebrand the person with firebrand that leaves a mark on the person, and the person is like in excruciating pain. You hear him, you see him suffer. Then another person comes, cut the limb that pushed the button, and the executioner mentioned it explicitly. That's because he pushed that button that this limb was cut. And same again, picture, humiliating picture, death at the end. Just to make sure you really don't want to do that, you want to push that button, and all of them are related to pushing that button. Then in the experiment, you are after that person died, you are invited to push the button. What do you do? First version of the experiment, so you can guess that you want to push that button, you don't want any of this. And second version of that experiment, a TV is entered in the room, and it displays a pre-recorded message of your family or friends or person you deeply care about. They are unaware of the sentence, and since it's on your TV, you cannot inform them. However, on their side, they have been informed that if you push the button, you get 1 ton of gold. And there is police with them to make sure that police as a witness to make sure that nothing bad will happen. You don't see the police, and you only get the message that basically will invite you to push the button. There is if you consider this experiment religiously, it's not gonna hold, but it's really for the example here. So what are you gonna do in this second version of the experiment? So here you're probably not gonna push that button, and it's gonna be the same for any person with basic rational capacity, no matter family, no matter religion, no matter the nation and education. There is maybe one extreme case where if you really trust your close ones, you might still push the button, but in any case you will have a strong hesitation to follow the people you grew up with, the people you trusted all your life, after just one simple experiment with a few minutes following the beginning of the experiment. So basically here what I'm trying to show is that the strong belief avoid punishment by not pushing the button of experiment A has been acquired, and the observation of that punishment of the first person seems to have been the cause. And this belief, although very early, happened very late in your life, is strong enough to challenge your closest relationships. So that's example of how a belief may be acquired, and we want to here build, as we'll see later, the best beliefs possible. So what is the best? What do we call the best? For now we start to call it, we will call it strong truth. So basically a statement is strongly true if its target event is occurring. So it's really the thing happens. If a statement is true, whatever it states happen and basically if the target event involves a pleasure or an avoided pain, you get that pleasure, you avoid that pain. So it's really the ultimate goal, kind of the ultimate goal of our life. And now we're gonna try to get a way to derive a strong truth. At least we'll try on any statement. So how do we get it? This is the purpose of this is covered in the next section. And as the name indicates, we will have other levels of truth. We will introduce weakness, so notion of optimality, notion of pragmatism later as we go through the life model. But for now, just the thing to occur is already something impressive to achieve. So before we start that process to get this strong truth, there's just a note on this. With the way we define it, this truth is really independent of anything. For example, if you look at the world, according to the place you are born on earth, your mothers tell their kid to adhere to one religion or another. But the problem is these religions have, some of them at least, have mutually negating statements. So really opposed statement cannot be true together. So typically hell, infinite pain, according to a person may get hell like an infinite pain, like the worst thing you want the worst thing you want to avoid. You can get it in one religion, and in another religion at the same time you may get paradise, so infinite pleasure, the best thing you want. Despite, so here it's happening, so despite being their mother, so at least one of them is guaranteed to be lying, as we'll see in logic, it's guaranteed to be lying to her child with the worst possible stakes. So here what I'm trying to say is in matters of quest for truth, you can't trust anybody. You really can't trust anybody. You're only there with yourself and trying to figure out things. And the effort that the work I will define in this chapter must be carried out basically by each individual person. And when I say this, I apply it to this channel as well. But the good thing is, my goal in this section is basically to give you all the tools to assess if something is true or not. So I clarify the overall understanding of the quest for truth, at least with all the experience I have, and you will see that by building a proper structure, I think you can make sure you are free of biases that we'll cover in base behavior later. And then after this, I will so in the following sections I will apply it on religious knowledge, which is very hard questions. So it will give you opportunity to use them against me. So really, right now I put myself in a position of danger. But since I'm only interested in clarifying things and covering the elements in the best way possible, I will still do it. So next video we're gonna cover the approach to try and get this strong truth. So it's really the whole steps, the ideal belief acquisition and use process that we'll cover, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum.